Alright, welcome back to another replay cast. Playing as a Skaven this time. So this will be the new faction that I'm exploring with. Coming in with Lord Skrolk as my lord. Coming in with 4 squads of clan rats, with 3 with shields, 1 without. 4 squads of clan rats with spears. Got a lot of firepower here, so Warplock Jezzails, Poison Wind Mortars, and 2 squads of Plague Claw Catapults. And then my opponent is playing as the Chaos Dwarfs. And by the way, we're on Galleon's Cove, if you can't tell. My opponent has a Magma Cannon. They have got Chaos Dwarf Warriors, some with great weapons. There'll be 1 with great weapons. Immortals, which is Infernal Iron Sworn. So a lot of units I'm not familiar with. This is the first time for me playing against the Chaos Dwarfs. Astragoth Ironhand as their lord. Also, they got Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses and Hobgoblin Cutthroats. So what does this symbol here mean? Shielded. Block 35 small arms, missiles from hitting the front. So this symbol is, I wonder if this is new or if this is just an edited version of the old one. So anyways, let's get into it. I'm gonna fast forward through this introduction, or the kind of like original approach. So as soon as I saw that explosion, I saw that magma cannon up on the hillside. And so what I did was I started shifting. You're gonna see all of my artillery pieces are moving to the opposite side of this thing so that he can't shoot from this I don't know if you call it, overhang or cliff down on my, my artillery, because he's got more range than me. He's got 450, the most I have is 400 on the Plague Claw Catapults. The Warplock Jezzails and the Poison Wind Mortars are both 250, 275 respectively, so I knew I wanted to protect my artillery since I had invested so much in them. In fact, most of the clan rat spears that I brought were to sit on top of these guys and just protect them from any kind of mobility that this guy had. So he's bringing his lord over. I guess he's trying to get some vision on what I have and what I'm bringing back here. So I got a couple shots off with the Warplock Jezzails. He has got, I'm not sure what spell that is coming down. I reacted a little bit late to that, especially for not too much action going on at the time. Looks like that's, I'm not sure if it was that, the Black Hammer or what. Maybe it's Hellhammer, it's a wind spell. So I'll have to get familiar with these guys' lore or their spell book. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of people playing as these dudes and experimenting as them since they're the new faction. So I've got clan rats with shields up on the hillside covering point 1. It took a second for me to decide to set up on point 2 and start progressing towards that, because I was trying to get an eye on what troop types he had. I figured I was going to need a lot of armor piercing, so you see I've got some rat ogres coming on the field. 2 squads of rat ogres. I'm sending 1 up to point 1 to assist against these Chaos Warriors. Hobgoblins are pretty lightly armored, so it's not so necessary there. And all my shooting is kind of just sitting back here, seeing what they're going to do on point 2. You can see I've got some shots from the catapults going in. Pretty incredible damage against these dwarf warriors. Warplock Jezzails are keeping this guy on the move. I had been meaning to check, so it looks like they did change the shield symbol. So for all factions, that's not just the Chaos Dwarfs. So this guy, I guess he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with his lord. He's got some anti-infantry troops coming in. So these guys are anti-infantry, decent weapon strength. Actually, that's pretty good weapon strength for what appears to be a small, cheap unit. So I'm assuming these guys are going to shred through my clan rats with shields. I'm keeping Lord Skrolk in the background. He is a caster, getting shots off again with the Warplock Jezzails on their lord, and just waiting to see what they do with their other infantry and whatnot. These guys were sitting back here, and I was waiting for them to get in range for the rest of my mortars and whatnot. And I figured until then, I'd just focus on this guy. I took my catapults off of fire at will because I didn't want them to waste ammunition on a single troop. And as I said, you can see the Hobgoblin Sneaky Gits just shredded through the clan rats over here. So Dwarf Warriors, Chaos Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, matched up against the clan rats. Not a great matchup for them because they're going to be wasting damage on small, weak models. But luckily for me, I've got the rat ogres coming around flanking and getting behind them, getting some armor piercing damage in, which is necessary against a troop with 85 damage. got a rear charge off. They don't have too much support, and the support that they do have is not too powerful. I'm assuming these Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders are similar to the troops that the Greenskins get, and so Etching Triad's coming up there. This is one of my reinforcement troops, armor piercing, anti-large, and they're going to go ahead and chase them off. I got Wolf Rats with poison as well to try to limit their mobility. Again, the poison is going to slow down the movement speed of the enemy. A lot of damage on the approach. You can see my weapons teams are just firing away, and he doesn't have any serious threats to my backline right now. So as you can see, Clan Rats with spears, all just sitting back there. The rest of the guys are going in and trying to get towards point 2. So Rat Ogres and Clan Rats with spears have chased off these Chaos Dwarf Warriors. My Wolf Rats have been chased off. Chaos Dwarf Warriors on the other side are getting pushed away by my firepower. Skrolk is backing up. I didn't want to get him into the combat too much. Death Runners was another unit I had in reinforcement. So Death Runners, Etching Triad, Rat Ogres, a lot of armor piercing coming in from my back pocket. And you can see because of my firepower, I'm the one doing a lot of the damage on the initial approach. So about 3K, almost ahead. Astragoth is still taking a pretty good amount of damage. I can't remember who it was. I had heard Turin and some other people mention that one of the lords was really powerful for this team, and I'm wondering if it's this guy. He's got super high armor, good combat stats, armor piercing damage, flaming and magic attacks. And so that's basically that. Lord Skrolk going in to get into some of the action, supported by Clan Rats and Etching Triads. Standard Clan Rats going to get some capture weight on a point 2. You can see the artillery still firing and doing a lot of work. Their magma cannon has been shooting into my hillside, but I'm content to have him shoot into any of these troops. Basically, there's nothing that is clumped together that is highly valuable that he's getting good shots off on over here. And even if I were to have Death Runners or someone like that getting shot at by the magma cannon, I'm not too worried about that. That's one benefit of this Skaven, is if your opponent has artillery, you usually have a lot of cheap units, so they've got to really pick and choose who they're firing at. You can see Astragoth is taking a pretty good amount of damage. He's got some Bull Centaur renders in here, so this is a unit I'm not too familiar with. Let's take a look at these guys. So yeah, it looks like they're kind of like armored centaurs, although their armor has been taken down. They're getting affected by shield grip and weaving blades, so any kind of firepower that I have is going to be doing a lot of damage to them. So Death Runners, again, I knew that the what do you call them, the dwarves have a lot of infantry and they have a lot of armor, so I figured I'd bring some armor piercing anti-infantry troops, that being the Death Runners, and the Etching Triads were in case they had some kind of large unit that I wasn't familiar with, which they did end up bringing. The Bull Centaur Renders and the Bale Taurus are both large units that are, looks like neither of them are too armored, but some of that again is from the debuffs that I'm getting off of them. So Astragoth is still holding his own in combat. Luckily for me, I've got Plague Monks that I summoned down on top of him, so they're going to be doing some anti-armor or some anti-infantry. Looks like they just faded away because they were summoned. Skrolk's diving in on him. Skrolk is not going to be a great combatant against Astragoth Ironhand, so ideally that's not a fight you're taking, but because of how much health he had and how much support he had, which was basically nothing in the area, I figured it was safe to jump on top of him. Still got a good situation over on point 1. I ran some Clan Rats with shields over to try to get on top of the magma cannon. Probably didn't even need to do that given how much ammunition it has left, but they ended up getting chased off by some Chaos Dwarf Warriors. I was able to push my opponent mostly off of the point. I was able to capture point 2, Death Runners fighting against these Infernal Iron Swords. So these guys are anti-infantry, not armor piercing. Excuse me, they do have fire and magic damage. Pretty good combat stats, really good melee defense. So I guess these guys are kind of like ground holders. And the magma cannon just put in a big shot on these guys, so that's unfortunate. But if anyone on my roster is going to be a good target for the magma cannon, I would say it is the Death Runners, because having those guys as armor piercing anti-infantry against the Chaos Dwarfs seems like it's a pretty good pickup. Whiplock Jezzail's getting shut down. My Plague Claw catapults are both pretty beat up. This Bull Taurus has been, or Bale Taurus has been causing me some problems. Luckily I've got a good amount of spear units that are dealing with it. I did summon in, what do you call these guys? The Warp Lightning Cannons. So I kept these guys in the reinforcements because I figured if there is a large unit that I struggle to deal with, Eshin Triads might not be able to deal with them, but they're super mobile. So I wanted to have some kind of artillery that was anti-large, and this ended up being my my option that I chose. You saw a couple shots going into the tree, so I probably could have deployed them a little bit better. You know, as soon as they summon in, maybe put them over here, so I have a clean shot, but I'm not getting blocked by these trees or any obstruction there. Point 1, still able to hold. These Chaos Warriors are coming up the Chaos Dwarf Warriors, I should say, coming up the hill, but I've got armor piercing on the Eshin Triads, armor piercing on the Rat Ogres, and the Wolf Rats to debuff their stats. And so on the downhill charge, that's always going to be a win for me, especially with the numbers. Point 2, my opponent has taken back. Got so it looks like they've got a specialist, Gordo's Backstabber. I'm assuming that this guy is some kind of legendary hero of sorts. So Flaming Sword of Ruin going down on him. That's cool. They changed up the animation, gave it a good new look. So he is. It doesn't look like he's like particularly anti-infantry or anything. I'm not sure what his general purpose is. So let's see. Interesting. I'm not gonna get too much into reading that for now. Astragoth Ironhand is backing up. He's taking a lot of damage. He got out of combat with Skrolk. He did put a hurting on Skrolk while they were dueling there for some time. And this thing is still being a pain. It's routing now, but it took me a long time to get this thing off the field. I think, so it's got 60 armor, it looks like, by default. I think part of the reason it took me so long to deal with this guy was because I was fighting him mostly with clan rats, and I didn't have Eshin Triad over there at the time. So I was doing somewhat effective trades, but very slow against them. And unfortunately, because of me having my Poison Wind Mortars and both of my Plague Claw Catapults on top of each other, he was basically shutting down a lot of my shooting all by himself. If I was microing better, I probably could have moved them all apart. My opponent is slightly ahead in victory points. I'm a good bit ahead in gold value. Still got some more supplies, more units on the field. So getting him off of point 2, although he still has control over it. So let's see, we've got, yeah, this guy's still in here fighting clan rats and clan rats with spears. Want to get the Rat Ogres on top of him. He's got good armor. He's got a shield, so he's not going to be taking too much damage. And wow, that Dagger of Malice is really giving this guy some insane combat stats. Just expired, but getting the Rat Ogres on top of him is going to hopefully deal with him. Again, pretty heavily armored. Looks like part of that is from his buff from being in combat, I'm assuming. I guess he just can pop it continuously. I'm not seeing it as a cooldown and the duration at the same time. I guess that's how it works. It's just a random of those 3 effects. So anyways, big contingent of troops coming from my opponent uphill towards point 1. And right now, all I have is 2 squads of Eshin Triads there. And they're coming in with a bunch of infantry. Blunderbusses, which are going to get some good firepower in there. And Hobgoblin Cutthroats. So these guys are, I guess, just standard swordsmen. No particularly interesting buffs. I would say the Bull Centaur Renders are getting pushed off. Of course, that's going to happen against Eshin Triads. And Sneaky gets some anti-infantry troops. So I need to get something over there if I'm going to hold on to point 1 still. I was able to get a bunch of clan rats on a point 2 and start to hold that. My Rat Ogres along with Skrolk were able to take out this little hero of theirs. And at this point, my opponent is still ahead on victory points. His Lord is hiding in the woods down here. There's probably, I almost wonder if it would make more sense for him to hide over here or something where he's near to his troops. I'm not sure what his Winds of Magic situation is like. He is a wizard, so he's their caster, and I'm assuming he's their main caster. So Warp Lightning Cannons, I adjusted, got them into an area where they could shoot into the open field and shoot at some of the reinforcements coming in. I did unsummon some of my Plague Claw Catapults and some of my other weapons crew so that I could bring them back on fresh with more models. So Death Runner is sitting on top of point 2, and he brought another Bale Taurus in. I'm not sure if this was a resummon of the first one or what, but given the infantry coming uphill, I'm getting a downhill charge with my Death Runners. One squad matched up against the Hobgoblin Cutthroats, another one coming in against the Hobgoblin Sneaky Gits. He's getting some shots in from the Chaos Dwarf Blunderbusses, and the Bale Taurus is jumping on top of the Death Runners as well. This is not a trade I want with the Death Runners. Probably should have just tried to right click through this guy and let the Eshin Triads deal with him. Flanking run coming from the Wolf Rats with poison. Going to be getting some debuff with them, and these Hobgoblins are starting to shake because they don't have too much support around them, and I guess they are a low leadership unit as it is. So at this point, I've realized that I've got a double cap, and that's what I just need to hold on to. So I'm kind of fanning out my clan rats, making sure that if I see troops coming around and charging onto that, I can send one out just to hold ground and act as a meat shield and prevent them from getting capture waiting on point 2. That's why you see my units stagger around like this. Probably not ideal combat formation, but again, I'm just trying to hold the points. Blunderbuss is still out here, getting some shooting in. I got some clan rats jumping on top of them just to shut down some of that firepower. The Bale Taurus is still fighting against my Wolf Rats and my Death Runners. I got 2 squads of them on top of these guys. I think they're both chasing the Hobgoblin Cutthroat, so really I want to, ideally I get them off of this guy and get them down here in the other combat, or at least sitting on top of point 1. Probably stacking them against this guy is just going to help him out because he's got splash damage. So you don't want to be putting more troops than necessary in a situation like that. Rat Ogres on the way to reinforce. Again, they've got most of their troops moving towards point 1, it seems, so I want to get some more armor piercing damage that is more generalized. And what I mean is that Death Runners are more specialized against infantry, Eshin Triads are more specialized against large, and the Rat Ogres can kind of deal with anything. So as long as they've got something else in the mix, I would assume that Rat Ogres function similarly to a unit like Ushabti or something like that, where they function best if they're mixed into a large squad of infantry that are relatively weak, so that they can take advantage of their damage and not be soaking up damage from opponents, especially since you can see these guys have relatively low melee defense. So my opponent got their Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders on top of my Warp Lightning cannons. I wasn't doing a good job of protecting them, but luckily I had Skrolk in the area and a couple other troops that were able to reinforce before they took too much damage. And at this point, this game is a foregone conclusion, so I'm just going to fast forward to the end. My opponent's just trying to push on to points 2 and 1, but he doesn't have the resources to do so, mostly because of how the trading has been going. So pretty interesting matchup. I feel like, you know, I'm not too experienced with this game, and I really don't know much about the Chaos Dwarf roster, but from what I saw in this match, I feel like the Skaven have a good amount of answers to what they can do. So I don't know if it was just because of my opponent's skill level versus mine or what, but I felt like whatever unit he had on the field, I had something ready in my back pocket that I could deploy and deal with. So anyways, let's take a quick look at the gold value. So nothing special on Skrolk. Poison Wind Mortars, neither. The Plague Claw Catapults and the Warp Lock Jezzails all did a ton of damage. Clan Rats and whatever aren't really going to do too much. One squad actually, Clan Rats with Spears, got 727. I'm assuming that was the guys that were fighting the Bale Taurus off of some of my firepower units. So Warp Lightning Cannon didn't get too much. Death Runners, and so this is what I was saying. Death Runners got a lot of value. Rat Ogres got a lot of value. Eshin Triad got a lot of value. And Wolf Rats. And again, these are all my armor piercing units that I was bringing in as reinforcements, and kind of I put all these in the reinforcements thing because I figured I could keep an eye on what my opponent was bringing in and then use my more expensive troops as counters to what they're playing with. So for my opponent, Astragoth actually got a pretty good amount of value. I'm surprised. I didn't think he was doing too much on the field there, but he did pretty good. The Immortals did not great. I'm sure they cost more than that. Magma Cannon, I'm assuming cost more than that. Well, this blunderbuss got shut down. The Warriors didn't do great. I almost wonder if it would have made more sense for this guy to slash the Warriors from the Chaos Dwarf Warriors from his roster and bring a lot of Hobgoblins or something like that. Not being familiar with the roster, but assuming that these guys have similar stats to other Goblin type units and Greenskin type units, could have been better, because if you have units that have like good weapon strength or something like that, some of that is wasted on a lot of the Skaven roster. And so Bale Taurus did pretty good. Bull Centaur Renders did alright. This Squad of Blunderbuss did alright. Gorda's Backstabber didn't get much done because he just got swarmed by rats. And it seems like that was basically it. So anyways, well played to my opponent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.